This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, Rabbi, so good morning. We have an amazing topic ahead of us, relevant to the Yom Tov of Pesach and to the Hagadah. You know, if you hear that a new book came out, and you want to get a good idea, you know, what is the book about? Well, what's going on in this book? What's the topic over here? You know, you want to get a good feel for the book. So you know there's a general rule. You open up the book, you read the first sentence, you go to the end, you read the last sentence, and that'll give you, a little bit of a good feel of what the book's about. So, we know it says about the Torah itself. The Gemara in Saita says on Daf Yudal, it's number 4 on your sheets, Darash Rabbi Simlai, Torah, Tchilasa Gemilas Chasadim, V'Saifa Gemilas Chasadim. The Torah begins with Chesed, ends with Chesed. Tchilasa Gemilas Chasadim, it begins with Chesed, the Chsiv. The pasuk says, "Vayas Hashem Elokim, God made la'adam u'le'ishtay kasnai sar, garments of leather." Hashem was malbish harumim, right? So that's a nice chesed Rebbe Shalom did. Here you have two, a man, a woman. They need clothing. They're arum. God makes them clothing. So the Torah begins with chesed. The Torah also ends with chesed. How do I know the chsiv? Vayikbar oisay b'gai. Hashem buried Moshe Rabbeinu. So if the Torah begins with chesed and the Torah ends with chesed, it gives you an idea that we're dealing with a document that is kulai chesed. The Torah is God trying to help us out. He's trying to do us a favor. He's trying to do chesed to us. And I heard Rav Miller say many, many times, it's brought down in number 5, that obviously if the Torah begins with chesed and ends with chesed, that reveals to us, that's symbolic, that's what the whole book is about. It's a book of chesed. So using this approach, and in this light, let us take a look at the Hagadah. Right? The Hagadah is our handbook for the night of Pesach. And let's see, how does the Hagadah begin? How does the Hagadah end? Well, we know Hagadah begins, Halach Ma'anya. And what do we say in Halach Ma'anya? Hashata Hacha. This year we're here in Queens. L'shana Haba, B'Arad Yisrael. Next year in Jerusalem. That's how the Hagadah begins. How does the Hagadah end? After we're finished the Hallel and the Hallel Hagadah, we say Chasal to the Pesach, and then we say L'shana Haba Yerushalayim. In some Haggadahs it says, say 3 times. You'll see if it brings down. There's some say 3 times. So the Haggadah begins with L'shana Haba. The Haggadah ends with L'shana Haba. In the Brisker Haggadah Shaila Torah, page Taf Yod Gimel, he brings down, look how the Haggadah begins and ends the very same way, almost like Ashrei, right? The Gemara tells us in Brachos and Daf Yud that any Parsha that was beloved to David HaMelech, he begins with Ashrei, he ends with Ashrei. Right? So obviously the Haggadah is taking a similar approach. It begins L'shana Haba B'Arad Yisrael. It ends L'shana Haba B'Yerushalayim. And as beautiful as this may sound, it doesn't make any sense. Because it's nice, you want to start with L'shana Haba, you want to end with L'shana Haba, but does that reveal to us what the Haggadah is about? Is that symbolic of what Haggadah is about? Is that giving you a flavor for the Haggadah? Not at all. If you open up the Haggadah, it's not about L'shana Haba B'Yerushalayim. It's about things were bad in Egypt, and God took us out. What does the Haggadah have to do with L'shana Haba B'Yerushalayim? I mean, you could not have come up with a heading and a conclusion that is less relevant to the main body of the Haggadah. The Haggadah has absolutely nothing to do with L'shana Haba B'Yerushalayim. That is question number 1. If you want to, I would start the Haggadah like this. God took us out of Egypt. I would end the Haggadah, God took us out of Egypt. That's a good, somebody opens up the Haggadah, he'll get a good flavor for what the Haggadah is about. But L'shana Haba, it's a nice statement. Kalbach has good songs, no? Reb Shlomo has good songs with L'shana Haba B'Yerushalayim. But what does it have to do with the Haggadah? However, okay, that's question number 1. Question number 2. We know, how many books of the Torah are there? Okay. Technically, right? Everybody knows what we're going to say. Echad miyodea chamisha chumshei Torah. 5 books of Moses. Yeah. What are they? Bereshis, Shemais, Vayikra, Bamidbar, Devarim. That's colloquially what we call it. But if you look in the Rishonim, for example, the Bahag, the Baal Hilchos Gedolos, the Baal Hilchos Gedolos gives it a different name. Now, by the way, what does the Ramban call Sefer Bereshis? Sefer HaGeula, the Book of Redemption. Excuse me. The Ramban calls Bereshis, confuse me. Sefer Yetzirah, the book of creation, right? Shemais he calls
Sefer
Hageulah. However, the Bahag, as quoted by the Netziv in his introduction to Sefer Shemais, in his commentary Hamek Davar number 6 on your sheets, the Bahag gives it the 5 books of Moses, he calls it the following 5 names. Okay, you ready for this? Bereshis he calls Bereshis. We'll skip Shemais for a minute. Vayikra he calls Sefer Kohanim or Taras Kohanim. That makes sense, right? Vayikra is about what? The laws of the Kohanim. Bamidbar, Chumash HaPekudim, the book of counting. Very logical. We're counted a number of times in Bamidbar. And finally, Devarim is called Mishnah Torah. That is a expression we're all familiar with. However, you ready for this? Drum roll, please. Listen to what he calls Sefer Shemais. You ready for this Ga'inus? Chumash Sheni. Book 2. Whoa, Mamish Ga'inus, right? What did he call Shemais? Book 2. That's the best he could come up with. Book 2. I mean, the Ramban, at least he was creative with us. Sefer Hageulah. You want to call it Shemais? Book 2. Does he call Vayikra? Book 3. Does he call Bamidbar? Book 4? No. The best way he could sum up Shemais is Book 2. And in fact, it's not his own creation. It's not his own novel concept. If you look in the Gemara in Saita, Daf Lamed Vav Amud Beis, the Gemara says that Shemais is called Chumash Sheni, Book 2. So as the Netziv writes, and again in number 6, he writes 3 lines from the end, Veshuta de Rabbeinu Nitain Lelamdenu Bina. The language of our Chachamim is something we need to learn from. Why specifically do Chazal, does the Bahag, does the Gemara call Shemais Sefer Sheni? Okay, Chumash Sheni. Right? I don't know about what your favorite part of the Hagadah is, but growing up, my favorite part, you open up the door, right? And everyone's crowding around the cup.
Everybody's watching
the cup, right? And someone's shaking the cup under the table. Oh, it's moving, right? That's my favorite part of the Hagadah. And is he going to come in? Why are we opening up the door? Why are we pouring the cup? Who are we pouring the cup for?
It's a big machlokas. I saw an extensive blog about this, and the bottom line is they really don't know the derivation of kosher Eliyahu and why we open up the door.
Okay.
Big different ideas, but no one can trace back a true source.
Some say like this: there's a machlokes whether you need a 5th cup or not. So who's going to tell us whether you need the 5th cup? Teiku, Tishbi Yitari, it's kosher. But the well-known reason why we open the door is we're opening the door for Eliyahu Hanavi. Well, who are we pouring the cup for? The Mishnah Berurah brings down in number 9, in Siman Taf Pei, Sivkatan Yud. Mishnah says we pour the cup for Eliyahu Hanavi. Now, think about it for a moment. Could someone tell me why are we interrupting the Seder to invite Eliyahu Hanavi? I mean, he's always invited to my house. You know, I'm giving him an open invitation. Eliyahu, you could always come into my home. And I'm sure he's welcome in every single Jewish home. Vas epis, in the middle of the Seder, you're stirring the whole Seder. Oh, 1 second! Before we go on with the Hagadah, everybody, a whole commotion. Let's open the door for Elijah, for Eliyahu Navi. What's he doing in the middle of the Seder? What does he have to do with Yetzias Mitzrayim? He had something to do with Yetzias Mitzrayim? No, nothing. You can read all the Psukim in Chumash. He's not mentioned as being the Goyal of Yetzias Mitzrayim. He was Pinchas, he wasn't even around, he was around. He had nothing to do with Yetzias Mitzrayim. Why in the middle of that, right? You in the middle of the sukkah, you stare the whole sukkah. By the way, let's open up the door, Eliyahu Navi's coming in. What shaykhs Eliyahu Navi got to do in the middle of the, right? Imagine in the middle of Mustafa and Yom Kippur, middle of it, whoa, wait a second, everyone stop, open the door, Eliyahu Navi's walking in. No. Well, he's always invited, but what's he coming in the middle of the Seder? And why at that juncture? You want him to come, invite him for the Seder. Open up the door in the beginning of the Seder, Baruch haba, Eliyahu Navi. No, in middle of the Seder. When? What, he's coming for dessert? After dessert, he heard, you're serving some good chocolate cake for dessert. So we assume, he probably wants to get in on it. Well, what's he coming in at that juncture?
Well, we said that you asked the first question on Lashon Haba, what shackles of Lashon Haba say? You can say extra that you invited Eliyahu Navi in because you have bitachon that he's going to come soon, And we're going to have Lashana Haba.
Beautiful. We should have bitachon every day of the year. What are we in the middle of the Seder?
Shiurim.
Shiurim means...
Then it should say in the beginning, not in the middle.
Say in the beginning Lashana
Okay.
Haba.
Rabbi Isai, we continue. Question number 4, we're up to. Remember when God comes to Moshe Rabbeinu the first time, and he's pleading with him, he's cajoling him, he's persuading him, "No, Moshe, you're the man for the job. I want you to take the Jewish people out of the land of Egypt." So Moshe says, "Nah, you got the wrong guy." Right? He says, "Vayomer, biyad oina, shlachna biyad tishlach." He says, "Please Hashem, please send biyad tishlach, through the one you usually send. What do you want from my life? Send the guy you usually send." Says Rashi, who is Moshe referring to? Who does he want to hand off the job to? Says Rashi, biyad mi, she'ata ragil l'shlayach. Send your usual messenger, v'hu Aaron. Okay. So, by the way, that makes sense. Because you know that who was a Navi before Moshe Rabbeinu even? Aaron. If you look in the Navi Yechezkel, it says that even before God spoke to Moshe, he spoke to Aaron. So Moshe has a good title. What are you coming to me? You've been speaking to Aaron all along. Send him. Says Targum Yonasan ben Uziel, a different pshat. Look at number 12. Va'amar, and Moshe said, Bivo beracham min kadam achashem. I ask mercy of you. Shalach kedoin shlichusach. Please send your message biyad Pinchas, through the hands of Pinchas, techame lemishtalcha b'soif yomaya, that you are going to send in the end of days. So you hear who Moshe wants to pass the baton off to? Pinchas. Who's Pinchas? Eliyahu. So Moshe says, what are you sending me? Anyway, Eliyahu Hanavi is going to come in the end of days. He might as well do this job. Sounds odd to me. God's getting... What's Moshe Rabbeinu drumming up Eliyahu Hanavi for? Why doesn't he say, Mordechai is going to save them in times of Haman. Why don't you send Mordechai? Oh, Yochanan Kohen Gadol is going to save them from Antiochus, so send Yochanan Kohen Gadol. First episode, he's drumming up Eliyahu Hanavi. Another question.
He wanted to avoid the two Goliaths.
Okay.
If Eliyahu would have come, there wouldn't have been two.
So he wants to go straight to Eretz Yisrael. Okay, that's a good shot. Yeah, that's one shot. Rabbi Glatstein, I'm very excited to be able to tell you that, if you look through many Haggadahs, who wrote the Haggadah?
I didn't do it.
Yeah, that's what I would have said. A lot of it comes from Mechilta, different Mamari Chazal. Who is the editor-in-chief of the Haggadah? So it does not say in any Haggadah. It just says, the Baal Haggadah. It's printed in the Haggadah Tzemach Menachem, in the name of Rav Bunam. Now, which Rav Bunam is that? Rav Simcha Bunam Pshischa. That the Haggadah Shel Pesach was written by Eliyahu Hanavi. So, I have a question for you. What shaykhis Eliyahu Hanavi? Had nothing better to do with his time than to write the Haggadah? What's he writing the Haggadah? Why doesn't he write, collective poems by Eliyahu Hanavi? What's he writing the Haggadah for? You want to write something? I don't know, write the story about Hara Carmel. You were there. Write the story about, Pinchas killing, Zimri. And what's he writing the Haggadah for? Why the Haggadah?
What shaykh has
Eliyahu Hanavi have to do with Haggadah? He didn't even get the job. Right? Moshe Rabbeinu said, send Eliyahu. And Hashem said, no, I'm not. So what Eliyahu said, at least if I can't do it, I'll write the book. That's the second best option. Okay. Then we come to another question. We move along in the Haggadah, and we talk about all the miracles in Mitzrayim, Dam, Tzfardea, Kinim, Arab, Dever, Shchin, Barad, Arbe, Choshech. And then we say, how many makos were Mitzrayim? 10. How many makos alayam?
50.
50. Then Rabbi Glatstein says, no, not 10 and 50, 200 in Mitzrayim, 40 in Mitzrayim, 200 on the Yam. Rabbi Kiva says, no. Rabbi Kiva says, 50 in Mitzrayim, 250 on the Yam. I mean, these guys, they have nothing but better to do with their time than, 40, 50, 200, who cares? Who cares how many miracles there were? If they're 40, they're 50, 10, there were a lot. Why can't we just say there were a lot of miracles? And it's a nafkamina to us exactly how many miracles there were. We weren't there. No nafkamina. What difference does it make? They have this big machlokes, 10 or 10 to 50, or 40 to 200, or 50 to 250. What's an afkamina? Okay. It's an interesting kasha, no? Okay. Then we say in the Hagadah, you want to hear now, there's a tifa kasha. You ready? The Hagadah shel Pesach, number 14. After all the dayenus, we say, al achas, kama v'kama, all the more so. Taiva, kefula, u'mechupelas, lamakim aleinu. All the more so. God did us a taiva. The taiva is kefula. What does kefula mean?
Doubled.
Doubled. U'mechupelas, nachamal doubled. What do you mean it's doubled? What's doubled about it? Each taiva was one taiva. What exactly was doubled? You want to say there were 50? Then don't say doubled. 50 is not doubled. Doubled mean repetitive. Nothing was repetitive. Dam, Tzfardea was not repeating dam. Shchin was, there's nothing repetitious. What's the lashon of kefula or mechupelas? Okay. And then finally, question number 8. We're going to have 8 questions. We'll summarize them quickly. Question number 8 is, could someone tell me, imagine the following scene. What are you down, Young Israel of Forest Hills? Imagine Young Israel of Forest Hills. You're the president? You used to be the president. So imagine under your reign, yeah? The Balhalla gets up there. And he starts, Baruch Ato Hashem, Elokeinu melech haolam, Hashem Shalom Shalom. And then in the middle of Ma'ashav, he said, wait! He takes out of his bag, salami sandwich. He unwraps a salami sandwich. He said, what? He goes, he washes, he makes hamaitzi, he eats the salami. Middle of halal, everyone's watching with their mouth open. Then he takes out a pickle, he eats the pickle. Then he sings miros. Then he talks some politics. Okay. Well, 1 second. Berachas Hamazon. He's about to mention, Ma'im Achronim. Then he continues with him. What would you do? Kick him out. If you're a good president, you kick him out of the shul. And yet, the night of Pesach, in Midden in the Hallel, what do? Stop. Let's go wash our hands. Some matzah, some maror, some both. Then some eggs. Then some gefilte fish. And then a whole suda. And don't forget about dessert, then ma'im achronim. Oh, now we're ready. Now that we, took care of that, we'll finish up the halal. What in the world are we doing? Why are we splitting halal into 2? Why the first 2 kaisais in the beginning of the Seder? The last 2 kaisais at the end of the Seder? What is this, it's like halftime. Halftime show. And who's the star of the halftime show? Eliyahu Hanavi. What's going on? What's going on? Okay.
A pretty good start for halftime. Yeah. People would watch it.
Right?
Ratings would go through the roof.
Okay. Yeah. But it is just for entertainment purposes, right? Somebody made a comment. Excellent shiur, but, we want to get you to speak in more yeshiva sha'olam. I said, no, I just cater to the crowd. No, I'm just joking. Anyway, so Rabbi Glatstein, very interesting. So, we have 8 questions here, right? Question number 1. How the way the Hagadah starts and ends, is that reflective of the main body of the Hagadah? Lashana Haba B'Yushalayim, is that reflective of the main body of the Hagadah? We wanted to know why the Gemara in Saita and why the Bahag calls Shemais Chumash Sheni. That's the second question. Number 3, why do we open the door in the middle of the Hagadah for Eliyahu Hanavi? What's he coming in now? Number 4, why does Moshe Rabbeinu, what's he passing off the baton to Eliyahu Hanavi? Why is he the author of the Hagadah? Number 6, who cares how many makos were in Mitzrayim? Number 7, what's the lashon of kefula mechupelas? The makos were not doubled. And number 8, why do we cut the Seder in half, the Hallel in half, the Arba Kaisos in half? What's going on? Okay. Rabbi Glatstein, in order to answer these questions, we have to begin with the following introduction. And that is, every observant Jew understands that one of the Yud Gimel Ikrim, one of the 13 principles of faith, is we believe in Mashiach. In fact, the 12th principle, Ani Ma'amin Be'amunah Shalema. B'viyas HaMashiach, I believe in complete faith in the coming of Mashiach. V'yaf al pi sheyisma me'ah, and even though he's delayed, Im kol zeh, achak eloi, even so, I wait for him b'chol yom sheyavai. I'm going to ask you a question now. When you hear this question, you're going to say, how come I never thought of this question? Or some of you are going to say that. Or you should say that.
I would say, how come this is number 12? Why isn't it number 1?
Okay.
Or number 2, right?
I understand.
I believe in
God. There's reward and punishment. There's divine providence. There's Torah. Okay. Listen to this question. Vasepis, all of a sudden, the Rambam became a Taisus. What do I mean by that? What's the Rambam trying to do in the Yud Gimel Ikrim? Set forth principles of faith. He's saying, Ani Mamer Shalom Sheyesh Boirei Umanig, right? Right? Shabar Yisbach Shemai Hu Boirei Umanig L'chol Habrum V'Levad. All of a sudden, the Rambam has a kasha. In the middle of it, it's like a Taisus. Let the Rambam just say, Ani Mamer Be'amunah Shlema B'Vias HaMashiach. And finished. Oh. Now the Rambam has a kasha. Where is he? The answer is I still wait for him. I mean, the Rambam could do this with every ikar. Well, for example, Ani Mamin Be'amunah Shalema Sha'Kadosh Baruch Hu Sha'Bar Yisbarach Shemayim Meshalem Sachar Toiv La'Oisei Mitzvaysav or Meshalem Gemol La'Ovrei Mitzvaysav. So why does the Rambam have a kasha? V'yaf al pi sheyesh tzadik v'ra'loi, even though there's a tzadik who has a bad life. V'yesh rasha v'toiv loi. The Rambam should say, Im kol zeh ani mamim. Or the Rambam could say like this: Ani mamim be'amunah shabar yisbar shmai einoi guf v'loi yasigeu masigei aguf. So the Rambam should say, V'yaf al pi shekasav b'Torah sheyesh raglayim l'shchina v'yesh etzba l'shchina. Im kol zeh mikol makom, dibra Torah koloshin b'nei adam. The Rambam's not a Tosfos. He's not having kashas on the Yud Gimel Ikrim. So v'asep this, we get to Mashiach, and the Rambam has a kasha. The kasha is, it's taken a long time. I mean, you can ask the kasha in every one of the Ikar. What do you mean God doesn't have a guf? But it says in the Torah, v'tachas raglav kilubnas asafir, v'avarisa sachayrai, or etzba loikimi. The Rambam's not here to ask. He's not a Tosfos. He's just saying the Ikar. Who asked this question? It's brought down in the Sefer Shari Oira in the name of the Griz, the Briskerov. Amazing question. I think it's an amazing question. You know why? Because it's something that is so... I love questions on things that are so overused that you don't think about it. Right? The more familiar we are with things, the less we think about them. So this is something, we sing our whole life. Why does the Rambam all of a sudden have a kasha? Okay? And the answer is even better. You ready for this? The Rambam says like this. The Rambam... in Hilchos Malachim, in number 18, it's Rambam Hilchos Malachim, Parak Yud Aleph, Halacha Aleph. The Rambam says there's somebody called Mashiach. Hamelech HaMashiach, Osid Lamoid Ulahachzer Malchus Beis David Liyashana. The King Mashiach is destined to get up and restore the Davidic dynasty. He'll build the Beis HaMikdash. He'll gather the Jewish people from the four corners of the world. He'll bring karbanos, he'll make shmita and yovel. Says the Rambam. What about someone who doesn't believe in Mashiach? Or doesn't wait for Mashiach? So Rambam is talking about two kinds of guys. Someone who doesn't believe in Mashiach, that's A. Or B, he believes in Mashiach, but he ain't really waiting for him. So we would say, let's say you have a guy, either A, he doesn't believe in Mashiach, or B, he believes, but it's not like, he's waiting for him. He's more interested in, how his baseball team is going to do than whether Mashiach is going to come this year. Or a person may be more interested in his stocks than if Mashiach is going to come. Says the Rambam, so we would say, okay, he's a little bit lacking in his faith. No, the Rambam says he's not lacking. Not only is he a heretic, in the words of the prophets, he's a disbeliever in the Chumash. So the Rambam is talking about two kinds of guys. A guy who doesn't believe in Mashiach, which I don't think we fall under. Chas v'shalom. But then the Rambam says, what about a guy who believes in Mashiach but's not waiting for him? He's a kaifer. What is he a kaifer in? Not just the Nevi'im, the Chumash. So we'll have to talk about that.
How do you wait for Mashiach? How do you manifest waiting for Mashiach?
We'll have to see.
Called a kaifer?
We'll have to see. So the Rambam is setting forth two principles. One is you need to believe, and one is you need to wait. Says the Brisker Rav in the Yud Gimel Ikrim, in Ikr number Yud Beis. The Rambam's not having a kasha with the teretz. V'afal pisha yismamea, question. Don't worry, the answer is in kol ze'achakolai. The Rambam is setting forth the two principles. Principle number one, Ani mamin be'emuna shalema bevias hamashiach. That's principle number 1. You know what principle number 2 is? Bi'afa pisha yismad me'ah. It's not a question with an answer, it's a statement. It's statement 2. Statement 1 is believe in Mashiach. Statement 2 is yearn for Mashiach. And if you're lacking one, if you believe and you don't yearn, you're missing an ikar in Judaism. So that's an amazing thing.
Why are there 14 Ikar?
Because they're so interconnected, I guess. But it comes out according to this, that yearning for Mashiach is not a high madrega, but rather, if you're not yearning, you're a kaifer. So here's the question. I'm a kaifer if I don't yearn for Mashiach? Where in the Chumash? Show me. I'm from Missouri. Right? Show me. Where in the Chumash does it say I have to yearn for Mashiach? So you say, where in the Chumash does it even talk about Mashiach? So we'll find psukim. It says, at the end of Devarim, it says that the Rambam even quotes, V'shav Hashem lekecha shvuscha, God will return your captives, V'richamcha, He'll have mercy on you, V'kibetzcha mikol ha'amim asher hafitzcha shama, He'll gather you in. It talks about Mashiach. There'll be veiled allusions to Mashiach. But you tell me where in Chumash it says I have to yearn for Mashiach. Doesn't say it in my Chumash. But the Rambam says it does say it in your Chumash. So what we have to do is find in Chumash, where does it say we're required to yearn for Mashiach? Okay? So, the Rambam makes a reference to a very interesting pasuk in Parshas Balak. Rabbi, so we're just starting here. And the pasuk says like this. Look at number 20. Erenu, I see it. V'loi ata. But not now. Ashurenu. What does Ashurenu mean? Also, I gaze at it. V'loi karov. It's not close. What is this talking about? The Rambam says it's talking about Mashiach. In other words, I see it, but it ain't close. I gaze at it, but it's not karov. Fine. So this pasuk is a beautiful pasuk. It is a veiled reference to the concept of Mashiach.
Who's saying this? In what context is this?
Bilam says, I see it. I see their greatness, but not yet, not now. Now,
We have to hear this from Bilam. We have to learn about Mashiach from Bilam.
Okay. That's also a good topic to discuss. But Rabbi Sai,
I think we touched on that.
we once touched on it, yeah. Does this pasuk have anything to do with the obligation to wait for Mashiach? So I'm going to tell you something amazing. Sometimes Torah is aniyim b'makam echad v'ashirim b'makam acher. In one place it's poor, in another place it's rich, which means sometimes you look at the source at hand and you don't have any clues. And you go elsewhere and then the whole world opens before you. We would translate the words ashurenu v'loi karev, like sure. Right, in the Slichos we say sure, and Ne'ilah we say sure, ki avad chasidenu. Sure means look. Look in Hosea, look at number 21. Look at number 21. Va'ehi lahem k'may shachal. I will be to them like a lion. Kinomer, like a leopard. Al derech Ashur. On the road to Ashur. What's Ashur? Assyria, right? Assyria. That's how you would translate it. That's how I would translate it. But that's not how Rashi translates it. Why? Because Rashi points out that whenever the country of Ashur is mentioned in Tanakh, it has a dot in the shin. Kal Ashur Shavamikra Dagesh. Every time it says Assyria and Chumash, there's a dot in it. Vizer Rafi. And this one is weak, without a dot. She'eno Shem Makayim. It's not the name of a place, but rather, Ashur means Erev. I will lay in ambush. V'ashkoid. And I will yearn. In other words, you know what God is saying? I'm going to get those guys. I'm going to lay an ambush for them. Kinomer, like a leopard, al derech Ashur. That lays an ambush on the road. Says Rashi, where does the word Ashur mean to lay an ambush? Kemai? Ashurenu v'loi karov. I lay an ambush for it, but it's still not close. Says the Sefer Shari Oira. Rashi al HaTorah, not on Chumash, but on Hosea, is telling me, this is how we read a pasuk in Chumash. You ready? Erenu, I see Mashiach, v'layata, but not now. Ashurenu, I lay an ambush for it. I yearn for it. I pine for it. V'loi karov, even though it's not close. Says the Sefer Shari Oira, when the Rambam says that the Chumash warns us to wait for Mashiach, we're these three words: Ashurenu v'loi karov. I lay in ambush for it, even though it's not close. That's an amazing thing. That's a completely different understanding. So in fact, this is the source, according to the Sefer Shari Oira for the Rambam, that someone that does not yearn for Mashiach, he's a kofar in the Chumash. Rabbi said, well, what we would like to do this morning is perhaps find another place in the Chumash where the Torah warns us to yearn for Mashiach, perhaps in a more open way. Especially the Rambam says that if you don't yearn for Mashiach, what are you? You're a kofar. I mean, you're a kofar because I don't know Rashi and Hosea. You're telling me, why do you have to yearn for Mashiach? Turn to Hosea, look at Rashi. Rashi there tells you Pshat and Pasuk and Balak, and now I know you have to yearn for the Mashiach.
By the way, in Hosea, just in the area where this pasuk is taken from, it's me my Bar Mitzvah Parsha.
Oh yeah.
It also mentions Ashurenu several other times, and in it's Rafei Ephraim Maliot Atzobimani Anisi VaAshurenu.
See there, it's obviously not referring to Assyria, right? It says Ashurenu. Here, B'derech Ashur, one would think it refers to a location, right? So Rashi's Chiddush is, here, B'derech Ashur is not...
And then in a few psukim prior, it says Ashur Lo Shienu. There it's not good.
Good. Okay.
Also, isn't, I think it's the Shiva Dinachanta, says Be'ita Achishena. Now, Achishena is not Ashurena, but isn't that a reference to...
That's on God's part. He will hasten it. But on our part, Rabbi Sai, the concept of yearning for Mashiach, you see where we're getting to. The concept of yearning for Mashiach, the Gemara tells us, is not just, right? Is not just something that if someone doesn't believe, he's a kafir. We know La'achamei B'esrim Shana, one of the 6 main questions that a person will be faced with. The Gemara in Shabbos tells us in number 23, the Gemara in Shabbos says, Omar Rava, B'shah shemachnisin adam ladin, at a time that a person comes in, La'achamei B'esrim Shana, Oimrim Lai, they say to him the following, Nasasa v'nasata be'amuna, did you deal in business honestly? Kavata itim l'Torah, did you set times to learn? Asakta b'peria v'rivya, Sipisa liyeshua, did you yearn for Mashiach? So Rabbi said, what we would like to investigate is where in the Chumash, perhaps, could we find that there is an obligation to yearn for Mashiach? So we'll begin this way. You know, how many mitzvahs do we have in the Torah? 613. We know there are many Moinei HaMitzvahs. There are many ways to calculate the 613. The Rambam has his list. The Ramban, the Bahag. There's a sefer called Sefer Mitzvos Katan, the Smak. In Mitzvah Aleph, the Smak says, now, if you were writing a list of mitzvahs, what would you list as Mitzvah Aleph? Believe in God. Says the Smak. You know what Mitzvah Aleph is? Look at number 24. Leida, you should know. Sha'oisai shabara shemayim va'aretz. The one who created heaven and earth. Hu levadai moishel l'maylo l'mata. V'dad ruchas ha'olam. He rules over everything. D'chsiv, anoichi Hashem l'ikecha, asher hoitzei me'eretz Mitzrayim. Now, in Mitzvah Aleph, 5 lines from the end, you know what the Smak tells us? Uvezet taloi, and on this it's dependent. Masha amru chachamim, that which the chachamim tell us. Sheshoyelin loy la'adam la'achar misa, that they ask a person after his death, Be'ez dinai, tzipisa liyeshua. Did you yearn for Mashiach? What? He starts off by saying that the first mitzvah is believe in God, and he says that's why the Gemara says that after 120 years they're going to ask you, did you yearn for Mashiach? So he says, Hechang Ksuva mitzvah zais. Where is this mitzvah written that you have to yearn for Mashiach? Elashma mina bezet taloi. It must be. You know what? Where it says it? It's dependent on the following. The same way we have to believe God took us out of Egypt, we have to believe God is going to take us out of the current galus. Shekeshem sheyesh lanu lahamin. Just like we have to believe. Shahitzianu mitzrayim. Shenemar anoichi Hashem lekecha. So too kach yesh lanu lahamin that He'll take us out of this galus. So if you ask the Smak, where in the Torah does it say you have to believe in Mashiach? Anochi Hashem Elokecha asher hotzeisecha me'eretz Mitzrayim. I mean, what's one got to do with the other? Maybe he took us out of that galus, but now he doesn't want to take us out of this galus. How does it follow? But from the Smak you see an incredible idea. That the mitzvah to yearn for Mashiach emerges from the most basic pasuk in Chumash. Anochi Hashem Elokecha asher hotzeisecha me'eretz Mitzrayim. Now Rabbi Glatstein. So fine, we believe that Mashiach will come. And we're going to try to explain this for the rest of the Shiur. Just because we believe God took us out of Egypt, is it a corollary that God is going to take us out of Galus? If I were to ask you, when will the Geula come? When? What month of the year? Nissan. It's machlekes Tanaim. Right? The Gemara in Rosh Hashanah says, number 25, Daf Yud Aleph Amud Beis, going on to Yud Aleph Amud Aleph, that Rabbi Eliezer is of the opinion, Tishrei, God created the world, the Avos were born in Tishrei, the Avos died in Tishrei, Yitzchak was born on Pesach, Rosh Hashanah, Sarah was remembered, Rachel was remembered, Chana was remembered, Yosef left jail in Rosh Hashanah, the Jews stopped working in Mitzrayim. B'Nisan, Nigalu, God redeemed us in Nissan, B'Tishrei Asidim Ligael. But He will redeem us, the final Galus in Tishrei. Rabbi Eliezer says God created the world in Tishrei, God will redeem us in Tishrei. That is the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Yeshua says no. God didn't create the world in Tishrei, God created the world in Nissan. B'Nissan Nivra Ha'ilam. B'Nissan the Avos were born. The Avos died in Nissan. Yitzchak was born on Pesach. Rosh Hashanah, Sarah, Rachel, and Chana were remembered. Yosef left jail. B'Nisan Nigalu, B'Nisan Asidim Ligal. In Nisan we were redeemed. We will be redeemed in Nisan. So if I were to ask you, when is the Geula going to come? What month? What would you say? Machlekes. How do we paskin? So you say, is this a matter of halachic psak?
Well, we usually follow Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Yeshua.
So, Rabbi Glatstein, you want to know how we paskin? The Ran writes in the Drushas Haran, at the end of the third drush, that during the month of Nisan, Anu Mekavim Hagula Hasida. Why? Because it's a machloikis, Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua. And they argue whether the world was created in Nisan or in Tishrei. They also argue when the Geula is going to come. But they both agree whenever the world was created, that's when the Geula was going to come. Says the Ran, since we paskin halacha l'maisa that the world was created in Nisan, so therefore we paskin halacha l'maisa that the Geula is going to come in Nisan. So halacha l'maisa, if I were to ask you, when is the Geula going to come? We paskin Nisan. By the way, the Aruch HaShulchan writes the same thing. Let's take it a little further.
Is now a chalta the Geula?
Let's take it a little further. Mr. Sherman,
Yeah.
if the Geula is going to come in Nisan, when in Nisan is the Geula going to come? When in Nisan? The 17th, the 19th,
But
the
if
3rd.
the world was created on Rosh Chodesh Nisan, we said that the Geula is going to come at the same time the world was created. So wouldn't it follow that the Geula will be on Rosh Chodesh?
All it says is, B'Nisan the world was created, and Nisan we redeemed. Does it have to be the same day? No.
Doesn't have to be the same.
The Medrash Tanchuma writes openly, look at number 27, that when the Kates came, it did not go by without Hashem batting an eyelash. In other words, it happened immediately. Look in the Medrash Tanchuma. B'chamisha asa b'Nisan nigzra gezerah. On the 15th day of Nisan, the decree was that we would go down to Mitzrayim. The Nidbar Amra Avinu Bein HaBasarim. God spoke to Avram at the covenant between the parts. B'chamisha asa b'Nisan bo malachi asharis levasaya Yitzchak. On the 15th day of Nisan, the angels came to tell Avram and Sarah that Yitzchak would be born. B'chamisha asa b'Nisan noilad Yitzchak was born on Pesach. B'chamisha asa b'Nisan nigalu Mitzrayim. On the 15th day of Nisan we were redeemed. B'chamisha asar b'Nisan asidim ligael. Whoa. Amazing thing. Not just we were redeemed in Nisan, we will be redeemed in Nisan. we were redeemed on the 15th day of Nissan. We will be redeemed on the 15th day of Nissan. Rabbi say, stay tuned. Okay?
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.